Welcome into the PFF NFL Daily. Today discussing the NFC and trying to figure out who the second best team is in that conference, Sam, because it's a strange season. We're 6 weeks in. Philadelphia Eagles, the only remaining undefeated team, and it feels real, right? They feel like a real undefeated team. They're playing well in all phases, from quarterback play to run game, pass game, to in the trenches. The defense looks fantastic as well. So let's say the Eagles are the best team in the NFC. And now we have to figure out who is the second best team in the NFC, Sam.
Yeah, rough audio today, Steve, because you're finally getting your laptop fixed, so you'll be able to type things in addition to, whatever else you do on your laptop. So we'll just have to fight through that, fight through the pain. But you're right. It's Philadelphia, number one in the NFC, I think, by a reasonable margin at this point. One of the top three teams in the NFL. But it really is chaos behind them. I know it doesn't look at when you look at just the records, because you've got the Giants are just one game back. You've got the Vikings that are just one game back, and then Dallas at 4-2 before you get to that gaggle of teams at 3-3 and everybody else. But we've been saying for a while, or certainly I have, that the Giants are not as good as their record shows. Even if you look at points differential, it's still very, very narrow for their margins of victory. This week, they are underdogs against Jacksonville. They're projected to be underdogs against Seattle the week after as well. So the Giants might not be as good as a 5-1 team. I think the same thing is true with the Vikings. They've been stumbling their way to some of these victories. Their own kind of coaches have been talking about how, there's a lot of stuff to work on. They've been selling it as a good thing, but it also means by inference that there's a lot of bad going on. So I don't know if the Giants or the Vikings are the next best team, at which point you're getting into the Dallas Cowboys of the world at 4-2 with Dak Prescott coming back, or the underachieving teams like Tampa Bay, who are 500 with Tom Brady, and the Rams, who are 500 with no offensive line. So it is kind of chaos behind the Eagles.
Yeah, I think when you're so I agree with you on the two 5-1 teams. I think it's hard to say that the Vikings or the Giants are the next best team just because of their record. When you get into the underachievers, though, I think let's set the Cowboys aside for 1 second. Figuring out the Packers at 3-3, the Bucks at 3-3, and the Rams at 3-3. Are they just underachieving, or do they? I know how you feel about the Packers. You don't feel like they don't have the receivers to be as good as they were in recent years. Are they at a point where they can't be in this conversation? The Packers with their receivers, the Rams with their offensive line, the Bucks with their underachieving offense. Do we write them off, or can any of those teams get back into this discussion as the next best team in the NFC?
Yeah, I mean, to me, Green Bay's problem at receiver was always obvious, and it always was going to be the thing that prevented them winning a Super Bowl this year. Now, what's different is I think they're underachieving even relative to that. Like, I expected their receiver group this year to be good enough for them to win the division still, get to the playoffs, but they're not going to be able to beat the best teams in the league once they get there. And you really can't win a Super Bowl with, Randall Cobb as your number one receiver, or Alan Lazard, or whoever you want to pick. Like, it's just not possible. I think the same thing is kind of true with the Rams this year with their offensive line. I just don't think you can win with the group playing the way they are right now, and potentially even worse with injuries that they've got. So those two teams, the Packers are underachieving even relative to expectations. The Rams, I think, have a terminal problem with that offensive line. The Bucks is one where that's a tougher sell, because I don't think there's a reason that they should be as bad as they've been so far, and in theory, therefore, should be better. But I think you can make a good argument at this point that Dallas is the second best team, because they've got to 4-2 with Cooper Rush as their quarterback for the whole way. That was expected to be, a thing that was going to leave them languishing by the wayside while everybody else carried on going. But Cooper Rush won, almost all of his games, and now Dak Prescott gets to come back into the lineup with a team that's in a really good position and has a defense that's cooking.
That's why I wanted to set the Cowboys aside, because I do feel like they might be the answer here. But first, picture this, Sam. Your kicker's lining up for an onside kick. The chances of regaining the possession are slim. The stakes are high. The tension's even higher. Your pulse is racing. He kicks, and you watch as the ball lands. And you can make every play feel this exciting with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. And their unbeatable offers. Right now, new customers can make any $5 NFL bet and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Check it out. In addition to the usual bets, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped up same-game parlays And to make things even sweeter, you could throw down on stepped-up same-game parlays once per game day all season long. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code PFF to get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Just place a $5 bet on any football game only at DraftKings Sportsbook using the code PFF. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. All right. Dallas Cowboys, they might be in the best position here, right? Because they have showed that they can play championship caliber defense. They've got the incredible pass rush, Dan Quinn, really tapping into what their talents can do on that side of the ball. And like you said, they won all these games with Cooper Rush. They have to be better offensively with Dak Prescott. Unless Dak looks as bad as he did in week 1, right? Before he got hurt, his accuracy and decision-making, not great against a pretty good Bucs defense that has shown they've got some holes recently. But if Dak is what he's been in the past, the Cowboys might just be the best all-around team in the NFC, not named the Eagles.
Yeah, and he doesn't even need to be that good, to be honest. Like, if Dak is the same as Cooper Rush, which is not the highest bar in the world to set, then they're arguably the second best team in that conference, even if he doesn't get back to the way he's been playing in the past or the level we've seen from him. So I think they probably are, because Dallas has the defense that Green Bay was supposed to have this year. Like, they're the team whose defense is actually capable of carrying this team, or has been in certain games, and doing enough that Cooper Rush only has to, not screw things up to win the game. Same thing now. Dak Prescott has the same benefit. Like, that defense is absolutely dominating people. The pass rush is one of the best in the league. They're helping it out with stunts and with getting creative on the back end, disguising coverages and showing different things pre and post snap. So the Cowboys have the defense that the Packers were supposed to have, that was capable of elevating the team and ensuring that they would win enough games anyway. I do think, though, that, Green Bay can bounce back a little bit to being something like the team we thought they would be before the start of the season. They still probably can't win a Super Bowl with that receiving group, but I think they can be better than they've shown. I think the same thing is true with Tampa Bay. Like, those two teams could easily improve their level of performance and start to rival Dallas, even if they're a little bit behind them in terms of wins and losses.
Yeah, so I agree on the Cowboys, as I mentioned, but yeah, I think the Bucs are the other team that has a chance, because they have players that have performed before, right? You still have Tom Brady, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. They're still trying to figure it out offensively, because they did have those early injuries. If they had just taken care of business in Pittsburgh, I don't think there's any doubt. If they played better in just the last game that we saw, they didn't. But had they done that, we'd say, hey, it's the Bucs. They're the best team, or the second best team. But that actually raised way more doubts by going into Pittsburgh, laying an egg in a game that they should have won. So that's why we're in this spot, Sam, with a lot of 3-3 teams in the NFC, a lot of unknowns and indecision. The other team to think about is the San Francisco 49ers. It's, last year at this time, we kept saying, who's the best team in the NFL? And that changed every week. Right now, it feels like we are saying, who's the second best team? And just a couple weeks ago, the 49ers were probably in that equation. You have Kyle Shanahan on offense. You might have the best defense in the NFL. But then they took a step back and they laid an egg against the Atlanta Falcons. That's why this question is so difficult here, who the second best team is in the NFC.
Yeah, and I also think, by the way, as much as we dismiss them with their records, like, the Vikings can play better than they've played.
Sure.
A big reason that they're not as good as that 5-1 record is because they haven't actually played that well. But I think the talent is there for them to play significantly better. So I think, obviously, the coaching staff and the people in Minnesota are sort of selling that angle, and they would, right? Because it's their team. But there's an element of truth there, which is a lot of players on that team are capable of significantly better play going forward. And if they do get that, if they start to bring that together, remember, that's a new coaching staff in the building this year, a new GM as well. Like, it's a new group. If that coalesces, I think they could end up rivaling the other teams in the NFC for being that second best team.
All right. Do you have a final answer here, who the second best team is beyond the Eagles?
Yeah, again, we've sort of broached this before, like, as of right now, or as of, down the line into the future. I think right now it's Dallas. And then I think down the line, it's probably still Dallas, unless one of those other teams can show that, like, level of improvement down the stretch.
Yeah, so I agree with Dallas right now. I think down the stretch, though, I still believe in the Bucs being able to get back on track, just because the foundation is strong enough. And I don't think their weaknesses are as strong as, say, the Packers or the Rams, other teams that have been there before. So give me the Bucs to be the second best team in the NFL, but besides behind the Eagles. Let us know who's the second best team in the NFC. It's the PFF NFL Daily.